Hello, welcome everybody. Glad to see that you can join us today for our joint event with LinkedIn called Connecting to Opportunity. So great to see so many of you have decided to join us today. It looks like we have participants from all over the region, if not all over the world. Also, some have joined us all the way from Germany, from Austria, from Egypt, from the Middle East region. So we're looking forward to seeing some of your comments in the chat as well on how you are experiencing the current talent climate in your particular region or in your particular organization. So please share with us throughout the event a couple of your thoughts, which we'll try to look at as we go along. So let us welcome you formally. I'm Miriam from Numetrics, and with me co-moderating today is Mohsin from LinkedIn. Hi, Mohsin, how are you?
Hi, Miriam. Thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We're all looking forward to this session. And as Miriam mentioned earlier, it would be great if you can, share any comments, any questions in the chat. As you know, we've got a few heavyweights from the HR industry as well joining us today as panelists. So without further ado, let's move on, please. So this is the agenda for today. We'll be discussing the Great Reshuffle, the hybrid work paradox, how to connect to opportunity, and then finally we'll have the panelists, the executive panelists, and in the end we'll have some closing remarks and some time for Q&A as well.
Yes, exactly. We'll conclude approximately in an hour. Depends how insightful and deep our discussion will go in the panel. And I'm sure you will enjoy hearing first about some of the market trends that are impacting us HR professionals and organizations as a whole today. And then to hear from our executive panelists how they are perhaps tackling or planning to tackle these challenges.
Thank you, Miriam. So we all know that the way we work is fundamentally changing. During the past year, companies have undergone profound disruption as a result of the pandemic, as well as long-term societal and technological shifts, which we are prompting a reevaluation in the way that businesses operate. In this era of change, HR is more important than ever for setting the strategy and guiding organizations through these changes to position the companies that they work for future success. So the first thing we're going to look at is workforce transformation. Professionals are reevaluating their careers and questioning whether or not they are in the right place or profession. As a result of that, our LinkedIn data suggests that people are either making parallel moves within their industries, moving to different jobs or different job functions within the same organization, or completely shifting to new professions, or even some are embracing entrepreneurship. We call this the Great Reshuffle. 91% of HR leaders find this significantly or somewhat concerning as competition for talent increases. Companies are fighting back by creating more diverse and inclusive workplaces, transforming their talent acquisition practices, offering benefits such as working from home, working from another country, and upskilling their workforce to match up-and-coming skills. The second thing we'll look at is digital transformation. Now, this is a buzzword which I'm sure everyone's been hearing for quite some time now. However, the recent health crisis has in turn supercharged digital transformation at a pace that many HR leaders have difficulty catching up to. 40% of HR leaders say they do not have the resources to meet these ever-evolving changes. One thing is for certain, traditional L&D models are no longer sufficient. Many organizations are adopting a more scaled approach to learning and development. And finally, we'll look at workplace transformation. Organizational redesign is critical to keep up with the recent changes in the workplace. As such, 95% of HR leaders expect at least some of their employees to work remotely. They're adopting either hybrid or blended working models. So given the current developments, HR leaders are under extreme pressure to transform the organizations which they work for. But yet 50% of HR leaders say they do not have an explicit future of work strategy in place. So let's look at some of the ways you can consider in order to build or develop your future of work strategy further by reflecting against two major market trends. The first is the hybrid work paradox, and then the second is the great reshuffle.
So about the great reshuffle, we see in the market that almost 1 in 2 people are considering leaving their current employer during this year. And that's a considerable number that we reflecting on the, many people are leaving their jobs for many reasons or considering new jobs. Could be on alignment on purpose and values and their long-term career progression, but also on what kind of future of work they want to be doing in terms of work setup, the way the organization learn or collaborate. And focusing more on the data that we have at LinkedIn, which we call the economic graph. So the virtual representation of all the data points in LinkedIn. So today we have 800 million members in GCC. We have 11 million and millions of jobs and skills and schools behind that. We are seeing that this is very true as well for GCC market, where the median tenure has been decreasing over the years. Today it stands below 2 years. And there are more than 2 million people that are open to new jobs opportunities in the market. So it's a big change, a lot of talent mobility. So it's very key to understand, let's say, what are the HR leaders doing to retain their best talent, to give them opportunities internally, and to reimagine the future of work to attract this best talent that's available in the market. And not just that, it's not just changing employers, it's also even changing countries or even continents. So we're seeing a lot of talent that's moving from, for example, the States to GCC, back to Canada, from Lebanon to the region, and then to GCC, and then to Egypt as well. So there's a lot of changes that are happening, and that presents a big opportunity for HR leaders and talent organizations to reimagine the way they attract and hire the talent, because there's a very big pool of talent available now, and considering that, but also how they can engage and retain and develop their current talent to give them opportunities all across the world. And now I'll give the floor for Miriam to tell you more about the hybrid work paradox.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, thank you very much for the inputs and the data. It's very interesting to see what's actually happening in the region, because a lot of the data we often have available is global data or other data that maybe we don't know how it relates to us here in the region. Seeing your data, perhaps this is one of the reasons why there is greater talent mobility and a reshuffle, is that the mobility is increasing, or this is an increasing trend all over the region and all over the world, that people are able to work from anywhere in the world, or at least in some regard in a hybrid manner from home or from a third place other than the office. So let's enter the hybrid work paradox. The hybrid work paradox is a phenomenon which is based on a peer-reviewed study published recently by Microsoft, which is, by the way, the parent holding company of LinkedIn. And they were looking at a vast amount of talent data of over 60,000 of their employees across the globe. In this study, they found that the majority of employees want to work hybrid and remotely in one way or another. And this is the paradox, they also said they equally want to collaborate more in person. Now, here's the challenge. Whilst businesses have seen an uptick in productivity throughout the pandemic, due to people working on tasks with probably less distraction, less waste of time on commute, and less socializing in the office, this very same thing has also meant that employees feel more burnt out and disconnected from their place of work, which in turn has probably contributed to the great talent reshuffle phenomenon. At the same time, which is worrying to so many leaders, companies have reported a drastic decrease in innovation and adaptiveness, which is probably fueled by a lack of in-person collaboration. And this is why Satya Nadella, which is the CEO of Microsoft, sees this paradox of hybrid working as the biggest business challenge of the decade that we will have to solve somehow. And by looking at the data across his own workforce, he realized that even within his own organization, there will be no one-size-fits-all approach. So in order to address these challenges where seemingly no playbook and best practice exists yet, what if we involved our employees more in the design of the future workplace? And with this thought, I'm handing over to Mohammed Al-Hinawi, who's our practice lead of experience management in digital transformation, to talk to you about how we can humanize the workplace further to harness this type of opportunity.
Thank you, Miriam.
Mohammed, over to you.
Thank you, Miriam. Brilliant brilliant question, I guess. So what if we involved employees in the design of the future of workplace? Actually, what if we involve them in the design of our future policies and processes? It's good to tap on this point. It's actually not a new point that that has been discussed, and actually not a new question. However, it's more and more frequent question nowadays, and it's reiterating the concept of human centricity overall and co-creation that we have been promoting and talking about for almost a decade, but it's more imperative than ever now that we talk about this aspect. So let's look at some stats. It's an interesting research about pretty much the simplest and most discussed concept when it comes to the future of work nowadays. That is, what is the future of remote working, for example? How are executives setting their policies in order to address this point? So research suggests that 49% of executives are moderately confident that policies that they have created matched employee experiences. Whereas, when we look at the number of involved employees in this, we see that only 1/3 of those executives actually involved their employees in the future of this. So there is a gap when it comes to the co-creation and the human-centric element of things, and it's represented by a gap that we see like right in front of us in the research as well, in the same research, where we ask about both executives and employees if they would like to work in the office every day, where we see 44% of executives saying that yes, they want to work from offices. We'd see that 17% of employees are interested in working from their offices every day. So this has a major impact on the development of policies and the perception of future policies of work when it comes to how employees are looking at it. So it seems that we're getting into a feud when it comes to the offices, which takes us to the next point that we'd like to address in this space. So the office is dead, right? The office as we know it is dead. Long live the new office. So how is this happening? How is the new office in the future of workplace? It's also important here to look at some of the elements or major spheres that were shaping the employee experience traditionally, whereas employee experience was shaped by three major spheres traditionally. Those are the social sphere, or how employees interact with others in the workplace; the physical sphere, how do they interact with the actual and tangible environment around them; and how do they interact in the overall work sphere when it comes to the tasks that they have to work. Now, those traditional spheres are changing. They are colliding, whereas like we see them more interconnected rather than being distinct. And with this interconnectedness and the merge that is happening, the sub-elements of those spheres are becoming more and more dynamic. They're not static anymore. So we look at the social sphere, for example. Now, I guess our family, our friends are more engaged with us when it comes to the jobs that we do. So, and this is for now, for example, but what happens in the future? So those sub-elements are so dynamic, whereas there will be differences in their weights and their importance and in their proximity to the when it comes to designing policies for the future work. So what to do? How do we address this in more of a human-centric way? Again, we just like to reiterate the fact that, you know, for the last decade, the concept of human centricity, have it be on a customer level or an employee level, has been developing. And this takes us to the co-creation piece, where we start looking at how do we design experiences more from a journey perspective rather than from a single staged approach. When we talk about the journey, if we consider the traditional or the typical talent acquisition funnel, for example, we look at several stages, from attracting your candidates to hiring them, onboarding them, performing them, and or helping them perform. There is a stage here that we have removed, which is the engage stage. We actually did not remove it, but we believe that it's applicable to all of the stages altogether now, because the journey has differed. It's so much different now. Instead of designing journeys that are tapping on single steps in the journey, we are looking now at a holistic one that takes into consideration people, that takes into consideration the backbone or the technology supporting this, as well as the places that we have seen in the previous part, where we looked at the collided spheres that now are being very dynamic and reflecting a lot of how we design employee experiences. So with this, I'd like to, you know, like introduce our next piece of this event, and back to you, Miriam.
Thank you, Mohammed. And now that we have created some context on some of the major challenges we are facing as HR professionals today, we of course want to open the floor to our HR executives to hear how they are addressing some of the challenges within their organizations. So I'd like to introduce you first to our panel members that hopefully are able to unmute themselves now, so that we can see that the technology is also working. We have with us today Hani, who is the Group CHO of Al-Yasra Fashion. Hani, you're with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Hani.
Successfully.
Perfect. Nice to have you. Also with us, Firas, who is Vice President HR at GBM for the region. Hello, Firas.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Also with us, Fatima, who is the Group CHO of Orido. Hello, Fatima.
Alaikum, everyone. Nice to be with you.
Salam, Fatima. Nice to see you. And I hope Dr. Yazan has managed to connect with us now. Yazan,
yes.
Are you with
all
us?
Good. All good, present.
Oh, perfect.
Great to see
Dr.
you all.
Yazan, hi, Yazan. Dr. Yazan is professor at IE Business School for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and he's also the CEO of Human Engineering. And then, last but not least, we have Jarek with us, who is a lead HR advisor and manpower planner at Daman Insurance. Jarek, you're with us? Seems like Jarek has some audio issues. I guess he was with us earlier.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you,
Okay.
Jarek. Perfect.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome. Well, great that you're all with us. So let us focus on us as people, and I've just stopped the presentation so we can have a good conversation among each other. I want to start asking to all of you, overall, the key need that we saw transpiring from our presentation, and also what the research is showing, regardless of what actually is the challenge, whether that's the great reshuffle or the hybrid working paradox, as much as that applies to businesses in different kind of levels, depending on the region and your industry. But one thing that's transpiring is that we need to somehow humanize the workplace a bit more, especially in view of digital transformation taking over. We must not forget about the people that we are serving, which are our employees. I would like to open the floor to all of you to understand a bit better what you have been doing or are planning to do to build a more human-centric workplace maybe in the future. So if I could perhaps start with Hani on this question, be keen to hear your thoughts on how to humanize the workplace.
Thank you, Miriam. So there is no better example than what happened during the pandemic outbreak. Ambiguity was leading the situation, and the fear of the unknown was leading the everybody's life, and not only in this part of the world, but in the majority of the world. So as Al Yasra and a privately held organization, we've decided to humanize the approach to everything we do in a very practical manner. So first of all, we stayed away from the raging ocean of related cost-cutting options, people-related cost-cutting options, because that was the dominating approach in the business. So we decided to stay away from that. We let go some people, but that was the natural result of the normal appraisal cycle. We've announced safety first, or people safety first, as our core strategy. And what's important is we've acted accordingly. We've acted upon that. So that was our focus in everything we do. Then we came to communication. We wanted to listen to people. We wanted to understand what people want and how they want to manage their own future with us and the business. Thereafter, we've decided in turning the disaster into opportunity. So we shifted the business, because we're in the retail business. We shifted the focus on the online. And accordingly, we started merging roles, shuffling roles, changing assignments, exposing people to new ways of working, because the majority of our business was focused on the brick and mortar. So we've taken that to a completely different direction, where the focus became the online. Third, we've announced a shared destiny approach. So in the communication with people, we had tons of town halls and round tables and focus groups, where we re-engineered the business targets, because the world changed. So you either decide to go with that cost cutting and minimize the business and lose opportunities and all that under the title of we need to survive by cutting costs, or invest in opportunities. So, but people have got to be part of that. So we engaged people in deciding on business targets, and we've had very, very simple, clear targets for 2020 and early 2021. And accordingly, we re-engineered all the business plans. We had something called 55 and 5. So that's not confidential. We're a privately held organization. So we had to achieve 55 million sales in five months out of the online. And that number was actually done in coordination with all business leaders, employees, managers at all levels. Then thereafter, we've decided on how we're going to achieve that. And we've engaged people and the business plan and achieving that. Also, the what's in it for me was a leading principle. So we've decided in a very generous bonus if we achieve that. So people didn't only engage in the plan, but they knew that they're going to benefit from that. And believe it or not, in Jan 2021, we've paid the highest bonus in Al Yasra history for the achievements of 2020. So when the market was struggling, we paid the highest bonus in history. So it's like you engaged, we survived together, you decided on how you're going to set the business targets. Today we've achieved it, and off you go. You're going to benefit as well from that. Main enablers of decisions we've made were the remote working, and believe it or not, and I think the majority of the people in this session would understand, when you talk about family businesses and privately held businesses, it's very difficult to make a change when it comes to workplace and all that. But we've invested in this disaster to change this culture. So we went big in remote working. And we opened for the first time in my organization, we've opened massively to global talent. And Mohsen here benefited a lot from that because we invested a lot in e-learning, including LinkedIn Learning. So, and that was not new to the organization, but we never invested that much in e-learning, but we did. And again, I'm back to communication. So we kept talking to our people, making sure that we're in line with the plans we put in place, and we kept updating people every day. That was the
brilliant,
short term.
Hani.
Yeah.
Amazing, Hani. If I can just
so what I was telling you, that was the short-term initiatives. And long-term, we went for a massive organization redesign with a focus on omnichannel and e-com. Now remote working is a policy, and we know exactly how we're managing that. We're open more to global talents, and we're investing left, right, and center in engagement and culture. That's what I'm sorry I've taken more than 3 minutes, but that's what we've done.
No, brilliant. I appreciate that, because Hani, your points were extremely insightful, and you seem to have really captured an opportunity in the crisis, and that's what we love to hear. I think a lot of businesses were challenged, maybe even paralyzed, or tried to hold on to the status quo. You've flipped the narrative and used it to your benefit, but most importantly, you humanized the workplace, and have seen the results and the success as a result of it. Because, you know, us HR professionals, we advocate for investing in people, but we need to show the ROI. And if you can say that the success of your business was linked back in part to involving your people and growing and tackling the challenge together, that's exactly what we see as the opportunity here. Now, I would also like to ask Fatima from Ooredoo, how you have been tackling these challenges or humanizing the workplace in one way or another.
Thank you very much, Mariam. And indeed, I think the past 18 months or so has been a challenge for everyone globally. I think for us at Ooredoo, it has really put our values at an amazing test. Our values are around caring, connecting, and challenging. And that's the 3 values we really brought into life during that period over the 18 months, where, taking care of our employees across our footprint, allowing for, immediate transformation to working from home, and allowing employees to stay at the safety of their homes, except of course for the critical positions where, actually the countries where we operate and needed us to be on ground in sales and distribution, or at the network and certain critical jobs. And as an appreciation to all our employees, of course, there was no at all any benefits or salary cuts or any downsizing across our footprint. So we really took care of our people, and we managed within the business to come out from the shortcomings from the business as a whole. We also explored a lot. So we listened to our employees. So communicating and listening was really done on a very regular basis. We also had amazing results in our organizational health index result across our footprint, with more than 80% across the 10 opcos and at the headquarters in group. We also invested a lot in growth and development, and further explored other solutions within LinkedIn. LinkedIn Learning was massively supportive to our employees and their growth, with competitions actually helping people to even invest more time into their growth and development. Not only that, but we also have been recognized. If we look at the global awards, our Indonesian company has been nominated and won the Best Employer Brand Awards in 2021 by the Employer Branding Institute. Our company here in Qatar also was won the best place to work in 2021 by the International Best Places to Work program, as well as in Oman. We won the same award in Oman in 2020. So, with these recognitions, we really joined first-class organizations across the globe in terms of their workplace environment. These lists include global companies like Microsoft, IBM, Cisco, Accenture, Nestle, and Coca-Cola. In addition, we were the first company at the beginning of the pandemic that decided that we will actually immediately activate a remote working policy for all the Qatar staff. So everyone had the peace of mind, even before seeing how the situation will actually develop. That was an immediate decision by the management here, and we adopted it until the end of last year. As we came back to the office and life is kind of going back to the new normal, we also adjusted our policies, and we're undertaking a pilot currently, which is also first in Qatar to be happening, to allow our employees to still further explore flexibility and hybrid ways of working, allowing employees to work up to 2 days per week remotely, having flexibility in the start and end working hours for employees, as well as if you actually, and because we do actually see the contribution of our teams, and the main focus is always on trust. If you actually do an extra effort in the first 2 or 3 days of the week, you can get a kind of a half day extra early weekend in a way. So we're exploring certain policies and certain things by listening to our employees, and we will continue to improve and see how can we even make the working environment in Ooredoo a better place for our employees. And the main, of course, aspect and thing that we share here is that we operate based on trust, and that's very important. And we want employees to come and be happy at the workplace and be able to contribute even further. This is in a nutshell. Of course, there's much more that we're doing, but this is in a nutshell what we're looking at.
Thank you for sharing these great insights on how Ooredoo has tackled the challenges. And I can hear some points mirrored with what Hani was saying, particularly on let's get together on one table and have an open communication, but also let us as HR communicate to, especially when we're more disconnected from our employees, don't see them every day, but even if they are in the office. I think sometimes HR can be guilty of not communicating enough to create clarity and build this trust. Communication is a key fuel of trust. So I think these are beautiful points here to take away.
That's important. So it's not just one-way communication, but also listening to our employees, because they're very individual in their needs, and what happiness and success looks like for each individual as well.
Completely agreed. Beautiful points. And I saw also on the chat, there's a question about how learning and development has evolved, and we'll get to it if we still have time at the panel. And we can maybe as panelists keep in mind, this is a question of interest as well from the audience, particularly how L&D was tackled. And we heard a few points already from both of you about how online learning and hybrid learning has gained an importance to, especially Hani, you were saying you reshuffled a lot of people into e-commerce, new skills away from brick and mortar. How do you quickly get to the point that people can get this skill injection and adapt to succeed, which clearly you have managed to achieve that. We also looked at the great talent reshuffle, and being mindful also of the time we have available. Maybe we can group the second question here with the first one for now, Firas, and particularly your environment of the business, becoming more human-centric, but GBM is also a consultancy and technology services provider that operates all across the region. There's a lot of workforces that will go to client side. You have to be very flexible with your talent and deploy it all over the place. You are dealing in a marketplace that deals with digital skills. They are hard to find as it is already. So how have you dealt in humanizing the business at the same time, maybe looking at these trends of hybrid working, talent reshuffle?
Thank you for the question. I think obviously conscious of time, I do want to get to the point on the learning front, because one of the things that we've focused on during the pandemic is invested a lot in learning. And LinkedIn Learning was a really key part to really institutionalize our lifelong learning mantra, because it's very important, if you're not going to be able to find the skills externally, to also develop your teams. a lot of us have gone and worked externally or remotely without having experience of doing that. And it doesn't need a policy. So we needed to get our people to really empower themselves and to really leverage all the tools. So we did blended learning, and obviously this lifelong learning mantra that we've instilled has also got us recognition with LinkedIn. You know, we're now part of the Talent Awards. We've got, we're one of the finalists for next week's panelists, but also we've also given flexibility to the managers to actually manage. You know, HR traditionally, when they write policies, they want command and control. They want to really traditionally make sure one size fits all. With us, we've actually given back power to managers to make decisions, to people on the ground to make decisions. And that really helped us through the pandemic. Obviously, we have to give the tools, we have to give guidance, we have to communicate, but it's also sometimes giving away certain priorities or giving away certain control. But that doesn't mean we still don't support the business. But as we always know, people leave managers, they don't tend to leave organizations. And if that's the fact, we've got to also empower managers to take ownership. So today, I know you guys have all presented about people leaving organizations and what have you, but when managers have accountability, when employees also feel part of the solution and not just be imposed on them, it really helps us to really gain that attraction. And funny enough, we did a survey and a lot of our employees wanted to get back to work. You know, so although everyone's talking about hybrid, we already had built-in flexibility from before. You know, we don't have attendance and what have you. So we didn't create a policy for hybrid or a policy for work from home because everyone's got laptops, everyone's got their Cisco Jabber or the capabilities from a technology perspective to work from anywhere, even before the pandemic. So I know a lot of organizations will come and claim that they were able to within a week or so, but we within 24 to 48 hours, we really switched on and off our work from office to work from home seamlessly, you know, and we had a great business story because being a technology provider, a lot of our clients came to us for expertise in that area, you know, and we've spoken in many events with Cisco and different providers of how in the Middle East we were able to cope with that. But we didn't do it because it's an HR initiative. No, because us as management always had that flexibility built in. And that stood us in good stead to really cope with the unknown, so to speak, and really overcome this great reshuffle. And today we're facing like talent shortages in certain areas, but we're like opening our minds. We're like, if we're able to now work from anywhere, if we can't get somebody in the UAE, why can't we get somebody from America and stay in America? Okay, there might be logistical difficulties in terms of a laptop payments, but let's do this case by case need rather than thinking we need to create a policy that will cover everything and have an FAQ for everything. We've got to be flexible and also play in the gray. HR love to play in black and white. Sometimes at times like this, you've got to also be comfortable to play in the gray.
That's beautiful, Firas. I completely concur with your thoughts there. And I hope this gives some fellow HR leaders the confidence to take the approach that you've taken and, you know, let the reins go a little bit and give them to the line management that matters. Our employees are looking, especially in the disconnected workforce, the interaction with their direct team and their direct team leader or manager will be ever so important, that they feel they still are heard, to listen to, and that there's some flexibility to respond to whatever the employee needs. There's also a very interesting question here on the chat, and it seems like there's a lot of people here with us today that really have learning and development and L&D as a burning question for them. And the question is here on how could you turn around a delivery-driven culture to a lifelong learning culture? Firas, if you could just say, since I think this was prompted by the being awarded for the LinkedIn Talent Award next week or nominated, how you've, just in one sentence, maybe how you've achieved that.
We've achieved that because we've embedded learning in everything we do. So it's not only related to our business imperatives. You know, we do a lot of learning to sell our products or services, but we've also embedded learning to make it a habit, so that in everything we do, whether it's to learn a new technology, to learn a soft skill. So we've embedded learning and we've made it as part of our culture. We've created our internal learning calendars. We've actually pushed learning to actually record our own people and put it on the LinkedIn platform. I know LinkedIn have a lot of courses, but we've co-created also our learning and development so that people also the ownership of the learning, not only the courses that LinkedIn have, but also we created our own learning platforms as well, and all our recordings, all our well-being sessions. So people are getting to the habit to say, did you learn today? Did you learn? And even if it's not something to do related to a business, are you learning just to better yourself, just to to cope with burnout and what have you? So we've really institutionalized learning in everything we do, you know, not only related to the business, and that really has reaped dividends, not only to get the recognition with LinkedIn, but really to institutionalize that at every point in time, people take ownership of their learning, not only at the time of the appraisal where people give you 2 or 3 courses to do. It's a daily and a weekly task that people take ownership for. And using technology really helps you with that, Miriam. It really helps you. And that's the correct use of technology. So sometimes, yes, there is a human element, but sometimes you've got to use automation to your advantage to really reach out to the masses as well.
100%. And obviously learning, the person here in the chat was asking if people don't even have the permission, maybe perhaps in her organization, or are given the time. I would just say to that in one brief comment that learning is not a specific space and thing like an online webinar or a session. Learning happens by living. You know, you live to learn, and while you're at work, exchange with colleagues, different discussions, lessons learned, approaches. It's a matter of culture more than it is a matter of tools that are being delivered. They can empower and enable your particular learning culture, but they're not a standalone piece to be an answer to a question. So then I'd like to now give the word to Jarek. Maybe perhaps if you can reflect back on all that we've been discussing and asking you in terms of how to humanize the workplace or deal with some of these challenges that we were facing on reshuffling talent, people wanting to work remote or not wanting to work remote, depending on your culture, and how to figure this out. You're working for Daman Insurance, highly regulated business, that I'm sure a different culture and policy environment than, for example, Firas at the GBM or Ooredoo, which is a more technology, digital-driven environment in itself.
So look, for us, the pandemic has been very personal in that we actually managed the health fund for UAE. So we had the impact on our workforce as such, but at the same time, we also had a massive impact on our clientele, who are the people who receive the healthcare that we manage indirectly for them. And I've got to say, the organization did a fantastic job by adapting very quickly to make sure that our operations don't stop. So the pandemic happened. We went to remote working essentially overnight. People adapted very, very quickly. One of the things that happened straight away is the productivity increased quite a lot, which all of a sudden started putting into question the thing that was mentioned by both Mohammed and Faris, is the need for control. This not only from HR, but also for the line managers. Sort of at the risk of being a little bit controversial, we actually sort of did this reverse step by saying everybody back to the office. And that in fact had a bit of a negative impact on productivity. So hence we are actually just about to roll out the hybrid work policy, which will involve very similar to what Fatma was talking about, essentially people coming into the office for 2 to 3 days per week and then being allowed to work remotely for the rest of the time. The only qualification that I need to put here, for us, working remotely means working within UAE, simply because of the data privacy regulations to which we are subject, because of the kind of information that we deal with. We cannot allow our employees to work from anywhere in the world, but that's just the nature of the business that we are in. Now, interestingly, the majority of our workforce are actually female. And this is something I haven't heard yet sort of addressed by the panelists yet. Whether we like it or not, the bulk of the, if you want to call it child rearing and taking care of the home life, still falls on the females within this particular region. And we need to be cognizant of it and take note of what is it that we need to do to support. Exactly. Sort of, we need to support our female talent. And if we are so rigid that we can't actually think about using remote or hybrid work as one of the tools that we have in our management for managing our people, then we're likely to lose them very, very quickly. And we're very much aware of it and trying to accommodate the needs of our female workforce as part of how we are going to move forward in our journey in this space. Now, the impact on talent has been massive. We have lost quite a few of our employees who have had the opportunity to reevaluate what it is that they want in their life. So we actually have seen quite a big trend of people migrating out of the UAE. So we lost quite a big chunk of our people who have moved on to other third countries, and that poses a risk. And I think it's not different to Qatar and also Saudi and so on, where people are reevaluating as to where is it that they want to live in the long term. So I'm not saying there is anything bad about this place, but this process has occurred. At the same time, it's really difficult to attract people from outside of the market. People have become a lot more risk averse. So therefore, to extract them out of the home country takes a lot longer. So
and maybe more investment.
And that too.
In terms of packages and so on, it's a risk, yes.
Absolutely. And so people need that reassurance that if I'm going to move, if I'm not going to make that decision to move, I need to be remunerated and supported properly. So that is something that we have noticed. This, however, has created a massive opportunity to fast track two things. First of all, automation, because we literally had to replace some of our human functions with automation, which has been actually progressing relatively well. The other one is the acceleration of the National Development Program. So, I'm fortunate enough to have met Fatma before, and she is one of these stellar examples of somebody who has been developed really well by Ooredoo to reach where she has done, and she's done a fantastic job of that. And we're noticing the same thing here, is that the investment in building the national workforce really pays off. And Miriam, I'm also aware of some of the projects that you have been involved in as part of New Metrics, which has been focusing on that with some significant success. And that's really, and I think there's a lesson learned for all of us, especially working in GCC, that rather than looking at national development programs as being something that we do on the side, it needs to be part of our core business as HR professionals, because at the end of the day, that's where we've got ready-made talent available immediately, where we don't have to, spend months and months and months trying to persuade them to move to this region because people are here. So I don't know if that sort of contributes to. Yeah.
No, it feeds into the question that Amma on the chat was asking, what's the strategic direction for L&D in the coming 5 years? I would say for sure, linking back to what you said, building a talent engine of national and local talent and filling the gaps of certain skills that we have, not just, e-commerce, digital transformation, the new way of working, a new breed of leaders, maybe arguably leaders and especially the middle management are perhaps not yet equipped fully to adopt to these new market trends and changes. So we must not lose focus on building that in-house to the culture that we need, rather than relying too much on universities or pre-workforce education to fill that gap, because probably it will not happen. But maybe Yazan, obviously representing in part also IE Business School, maybe has an additional point on that.
The only thing I will sort of add to this is that the L&D move to using digital platform is a must, and everybody needs sort of to adapt to that. At the same time, we're experiencing this digital fatigue with our workforce, because everybody is essentially spending so much time in front of a computer screen, that creating opportunities for people to learn together in a face-to-face environment is becoming a lot more, called for by our employees. And that's something I think we cannot ignore, because it does allow people to, first of all, gel as a team and innovate together. We sort of can't sort of,
It leads us on beautifully, Jarek, to the next question, which is more directed to Dr. Yazan. And I just want to make the point here that what Mohammed was saying earlier in the section about being more deliberate with spaces. And if we consider different channels, online learning or online togetherness, the office, a physical space, and all these different environments as de facto spheres or spaces, we need to make sure that we don't see online learning and face-to-face learning as a like-for-like comparison. Both of them have a completely different purpose. And in its combination of modes, we'll really reach a good adoption and learning, not just perhaps knowledge injection, which then maybe we will not see the adoption in the workplace that we need. We've got to practice our skills to learn, and we've got to collaborate and create ideas together. So how do we collaborate more effectively if the office is dead, the new office is alive? So what are these spaces? How can we create these spaces, whether online or in person, to collaborate? And I'd like to ask Dr. Yazan, who we've collaborated in many ways together in the past on redesigning workplaces and creating more adaptive, entrepreneurial, and innovative workplaces by culture and by design. So Yazan, what would be your words of wisdom for us on how to make that stretch?
Hello, Miriam, and thank you for the invite. It's music to my ear hearing my expert colleagues kind of comment on the cutting edge of really what's happening. Maybe I'll start by tethering to Jarek's last comment with regards to the need for face-to-face and how I personally view it, but also how IE does it. IE, we've adopted a model actually pre-COVID, but as with everything, COVID was the catalyst, was the accelerator of so many things, and it's liquid learning. And I love the idea because it shows you that it needs to be highly adaptable. Now, that being said, as professors, we are actually expected to go and deliver out of the class, even if we have half the class joining from different parts of the globe. So the technology is there, but we still want to maintain that sense of place and belonging. Now, virtual collaboration is a huge enabler for teams that are already normed and already optimized and already performing. And as Jarek mentioned, you need that friction, if you will, with being in a physical space. It empowers more creativity and a lot more information is present. Now, with regards to, let me zoom out, just kind of give you my 2 cents on how I see the transformation of work and spaces. Needless to say, as everybody knows, we're living in a highly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. It's driven by disruption, and these disruptions are combinatorial in nature. They're inter-affecting. So there is no simple cause and effect here. You've got an emergent system out of many factors driving that. Perhaps relevant to our conversation, I would focus on 2 kind of main drivers, transformational drivers. One is the evolving nature of work itself, and the other is the evolving nature of self. So with regards to the evolving nature of work, we're moving from, in order to navigate this environment, we need to be talking about deep adaptability, agility, creativity. It's no longer just about command and control, as has been mentioned. We need to be able to sense and steer as well. And that's how you ride a bicycle, actually. And, running an organization now has to be a little bit like that. We're moving from dominant hierarchies to growth hierarchies, right? So we're all touching on this need for organizational purpose. Okay, you made $1 billion last year. Yeah, what's your impact beyond the economic value that you've generated? I think this pulls in talent that is increasingly wanting to feel like they are part of something bigger, part of something meaningful. So we're moving from dominant hierarchies to growth hierarchies, where the way that goes is like it's a circle and a bigger circle and bigger circle. So there's a transcending and including. It's not about, everything we've done is wrong. No, everything we've done got us here. We need to transcend it, but include it in this kind of next level. When we talk about space, I think we need to redefine what we mean by space. Space is no longer a room with some, partitions and or just a virtual space like we are sharing, co-creating a space and a conversation together here. So I think we need to redefine what space is, and space is becoming increasingly hybrid. Now, yes, we need to be adaptive, but we've only scratched the surface. I mean, there are solutions that are trying to solve the problem of eye contact. Because, when you're looking at your screen, there is no eye contact. If I look now at my camera, you see my eyes looking at you. And you've got these, programs that in real time are redrawing your pupils so that it looks like you're connecting to somebody. Needless to say, extended reality, augmented reality, the whole 9 yards. So I think we need to redefine and allow, don't be too quick to say, this is how it's going to be, because it's emerging. Definitely it's hybrid in nature, right? And I think work is not about, going to somewhere and being somewhere for some time. It's about getting stuff done. So the other component is the evolving nature of self, if you will, right? We're moving from deficiency needs to being needs, right? It's no longer enough that I'm fed and, I have a roof on my table and, I have a good job. People want meaning. People want to transcend. We're really need more talk about vulnerability and empathy in an empowering way, right? So when we talk about humanizing the conversation, it's about showing up as a whole human being to work and not be too rigid about this life and then separate work. But you're spending most of your life at work. So what? You're wasting your time. Is that not part of your life? Balance is important, but wearing a face and showing up to work and then saying, now I'm going to go back to my life is like shooting ourselves in the foot. I think, a lot of people maybe on the call are invested in developing themselves, and we are in a lucky position that we don't have to really think about where bread is going to come. But, that also comes a responsibility to take our conversation kind of to the next level. And Miriam, we've collaborated with New Metrics as Human Engineering several times to have that conversation. And I think the first step is having a conversation. Nobody has the right answer or the perfect solution. We need a deep conversation first. When we talk about innovation and collaboration, this is a conversation that needs to be owned by the team. So it needs to be co-designed, and it needs to, yes, there's space for mindset shifts, and you try to create the environment around that. But we need to look at innovation work behavior on a day-to-day basis. How do you go about your work? And are you experimenting enough? And are you measuring the right things? So I hope that kind of answers a little bit of what I think about work.
Amazing.
Thank you for that.
Yazan.
Thank you for that, Dr. Yazan. And I agree with you. We're just scratching the surface here. And I'm really looking forward to how this will evolve in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. Now, before we conclude, I've got just one last question for all of the panelists here. In one word, and this is going to be a difficult one, in one word, what is the most important talent trend or opportunity for you right now? Let's start with Fatma, please.
It would be growth and development.
You, for us?
Promoting diversity and inclusion.
Yarek?
I'll second that, promoting diversity and inclusion.
Hani?
High performance organization, HPO.
HPO. And finally, Yazan?
I would say transcendence, upgrading our operating system.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you for all the attendees. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for our wonderful panelists. That was really insightful.
Perfect. So it's down to me now to wrap up today and really thank you again to all the panelists. I think we could have talked easily another hour, if not 3. I think this is always when minds collide and get together. This is when the magic happens, and it just feeds back to all the points we've been saying around collaborating, talking to each other, learning from each other, and not being too rigid in our approach, and be prepared to grow with our people and create the best possible workplace that we can, that fits in your environment and to your particular culture or industry. So a couple of 5 key shifts that we want to leave you with that summarize really what we've been talking about today. So consider becoming more human driven. I think that was the key point of our discussion rather than policy driven, and capture the not one size fits all thinking with that. And with that goes along the communication, which is the co-creation of solutions rather than being top down in thinking that perhaps we know best for our people. We probably do know a lot, but whether we know best or know exactly what our people are thinking, of course, that we cannot be sure about. We also talked about the need to perhaps accelerate some journeys. This feeds back into, again, we are not certain anymore that people will stay the amount of time that they have with us anymore. There will be a lot more movement in the talent market. We've maybe lost some talent across the pandemic. We now need to perhaps rehire as we grow. There's a lot more fluidity. So designing for an accelerated talent journey that gets us faster to the stage of performance, which goes back to what the panelists were saying on prioritizing a performance culture as such, to get to the stage where people are fully enabled and capable of adjusting to what they have to tackle on a day-to-day basis, which is the last point, to really make sure that your employees are enabled, whether that's working with new technology on new environments, that they get the right policies and environments to work in, as well as the right knowledge and knowledge tools and setup to be enabled with what they need to do their job, over perhaps a too rigid annual performance management process that just looks in hindsight as how well has somebody been doing. Embracing more a learning culture and a willingness to fail and grow together. So really that leads me on to just saying that whilst at Humetrics and LinkedIn, we have a lot of insights from the marketplace and empower, of course, a lot of companies on a day-to-day basis, but sure, we do not have all the answers also to our current and future business challenges. And that's why we also want to invite you today to contribute to our upcoming interconnected workplace research. We will launch this in the next couple of weeks, and as an event attendee, you will of course be invited to participate and access also then the data once the research has been released. So please watch out for further communication on this. And with that deep breath, I want to say a formal thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us here today, to the team from LinkedIn for providing these great data insights, the co-moderation, and generally our amazing partnership that we have launched, where we empower organizations together. And of course, our wonderful participants, all of you that joined us today, that stayed with us today. We hope you enjoyed this session, and please connect, and so we can build a better tomorrow together. Thank you very much. And with that, I say goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.